radius of the diffusion particle, which will be water here. With this equation, we can see that it works. So we can compute back from the viscosity, from shear tests, we can get the self-diffusion. So that's what I call Einstein-Stokes here. And we can compare with the self-diffusion computed from the simulations, so the equilibrium simulations. And you see that they match. So the two processes are linked. This equation here provides the fundamental link between viscosity, shear, and diffusion. A problem with subdiffusion is that you cannot use the Einstein equation for diffusion anymore. So we have to adapt. What you can do is to define a diffusion coefficient, but associated to a given time scale. So that's exactly what this equation is saying here. We can define a diffusion coefficient, but for a given time scale. So what time scale to choose? And the best choice here will be to look at the relaxation of water dipoles. So something that is related to the dielectric response of water. So you can take the values of bulk water or the values that you have computed for water confined in CSH, and both works quite well when we put at the table. There's not really a huge difference. And that suggests something interesting, that when you look at dielectric behavior, maybe creep at the end will be about relaxing dipoles of water. So maybe that will be the most fundamental explanation for our creep. And to finish with the theoretical part, we can go further and take Einstein-Stokes equation and generalize. So people have been using this kind of equation in rheology for polymers and etc. And what we see is that we can, we don't need to look at the version here. We can look at directly at this version here. So we have the creep compliance as a function of the mean square displacement directly. And what we can see is that the exponent of subdiffusion, the anomalous diffusion exponent that you have before, correspond directly to the power law exponent that you have for power law creep. So what this equation show here is that the fact that diffusion is anomalous and the exponent that describes this anomaly would explain the power law exponent for creep. So what you need to do is now to compare with the values that I have given the beginning of the presentation, and the comparison is not very good. So there's some work to be done here. The argument is that CSH, it's about microporous phase with the layers mixed with the gel pores. So if you want to find the experimental values, we should do some kind of averaging of the behavior here. And this average is not trivial because the behavior at this particle here will be, of course, anisotropic. And you have to take into account that the behavior here is different. So we know how to do that, and there's some things ongoing to try to upscale what's happening at the layers and to compare with the values, and you should find maybe something close to here to the values here. Another interesting thing is that when you have power laws like this, we can explain the scaling variance because the exponent will be always the same, irrespectively of the scale. So this question about the scaling variance should be solved. And we have several theories in the literature that have been using this power laws to describe creep and also diffusion. So what is nice is that this framework can provide a unified theory for both phenomena. And also we have water in layered materials everywhere in cement systems and also clays. So if you look at the structure that you know today from ASR products for MSH, we always find this layer structure with water in the interlayers. So if you understand creep for for CSH, you can also go in the direction of understanding creep for these materials. It's the same for swelling clays. It's also layered phase with water in the interlayers. And it's also the same for AFMs. AFMs are not very new for having a viscoelastic behavior. So the theory should also be applied here, and you should see that the mobility of water should be so low that actually there's no creep. So it makes a full picture of all the layered phases that could be assessed with the theory. Okay, and that's the conclusion. So the idea here was to show that looking at the microscopic mechanisms and assessing them quantitatively, we can get some nice hints about the origin of the kinetics of creep in cement-based materials. And what is very, very nice here is we observe anomalous diffusion in CSH, and the very thing that quantifies this anomaly is exactly the power law exponent that appears in power law the description of creep. For CSH, we would have these two regimes. So a behavior which is more solid-like for interlayers, and a behavior which is more liquid-like for gel pores. So to understand what's happening in CSH, you should look at these two pore classes that behaves very differently. And with the theory that is very well described in statistical physics for generalized diffusion and generalized Einstein-Stokes equation, we can go towards a unified theory of diffusion, creep, and maybe also dielectric permittivity. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's move to the discussion. Do you have any question? Luan.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, and it's very amazing to hear about the simulation from the molecular scale. So my question is about for CSH, so if we add like SCM, so the composition like may change, like CSAH, if we add so the silica and aluminum, so maybe increase. How it affects the creep of CSH, and how to simulate or how to understand it from the molecular scale. Thank you.
That's a good question. So all the simulations here have been done with one CSH model with a calcium to silica ratio of 1.7, which would be the most frequent average CSH. But CSH is very complicated, so we have different structures as a function of calcium to silica ratio, and also as a function of the substitutions of aluminum or anything that you can put in this structure. I don't have any easy answer for the answer would be you have to, if you see any difference in the behavior, the creep related behavior, it would be interesting to test and see if all these parameters computed the simulation. So we get a new structure and we evaluate the same thing, the shear resistance and viscosity and diffusion. That can be a way of validating everything which is behind, but it's a big work. So the idea is really have several structures and see how the behavior changes as a function of the composition of the system.
Okay, thank you.
But so far, I'm not sure. What for elasticity, people have been testing different calcium to silica ratios, and now we start to see people proposing a kind of library of CSH structures. So maybe at some point the idea would be test all the structures and see if there are any difference in the behavior, and then compare with the experiments.
Okay, thank you for your answer, and looking forward to your further research about if you can expand the scope for most different kind of CSH. Thank you.
Thank you, Tulu. A lot of results, have a lot of inspiration. So do you think that it's not logarithmic creep? So it's power law.
Power law is very convenient here. Now the question: can we fit this with a logarithm?
Yes.
I didn't test. Fundamentally, people working with the mechanism of diffusion, there exists logarithmic diffusion-like behavior. The processes are fundamentally a little bit different. So maybe that's a question. For the description here, it's very convenient to work with a parallel. With a logarithmic function, I don't think you can take into account all the behaviors here. So, but there are nothing excluding that for the very small pores. Maybe you should switch to logarithm.
Because, when we look to experimental results of 10 years of creep, so there are only few results, but when we plot it, strain versus logarithmic of time, it's linear. So it's very, very convenient.
What people are doing for clays, they are also claiming it's a logarithmic function. When you fit with a parallel,
it's
works.
also working.
Yeah.
And perhaps in order to go deeper, it's nice if you can test reversibility, if you have something reversible or partially reversible, because creep. So it's at macroscopic scales. It's about 70% irreversible, and also the effect of temperature. But I think that you will get the effect of temperature when we increase the temperature. So we increase creep rate, and I think that we will have it with this type of modeling.
If the mechanism is diffusion, by definition here, it should be reversible.
Mhm.
Now, if you could take into account this, it means that we are changing the pore size. So we can have all the problems related to hysteresis and going back to the pore size that may introduce something new to the game, and maybe we start to deviate even for the parallel. So there are things to be done there.
Thank you, Tulu.
Now we have the question from the Zoom audience, and then you can put the Q&A. One participant asking, he's very interested in the part of the using fractal theory on upscaling of microscopic mechanism. You can. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I see the question.
So can you answer to the Zoom audience?
So this is an idea. So there's we can generalize Fick law, and the generalized Fick law, we have derivatives that are fractional. So it's very convenient to work in this world of fractional theories, because they can treat the generalized Fick diffusion, and also people have been working on that for decades now to treat creep. So the idea is there's already theory proposed for that, and that can be interesting to apply that for what I have presented here. But I put as next steps is really just an idea in the oven. I don't know if I can say more than this, but in this reference, what is very interesting is that they propose. So when we are looking for rheological models, generally we are working for a spring and amortisseur en anglais. A dashpot. Sorry. Thank you, Faid. So we can also define a third element, which would be the fractional element. And you can, for example, propose a Maxwell, a Voigt, and etc. model with fractional elements that would correspond to something like this, which is a fractal arrangement of the spring and the dashpot. And to do the analogy of the molecular scale, that could be seen as how each dipole, so how each water molecule would relax and contribute to elasticity. So there are interesting things to be done, in my opinion, but it's really an idea in the oven.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, thank you. Sorry, due to time limitation, I would like to move to the next presentation. Thank you very much again. So next is Dr. Takahashi. So